I'm still in that not believing it stage. I know it happened, but I'm driving around and all of a sudden
Silence in Hollywood doesn't just happen. It's paid for. Most of the time, it's traded like currency, used to guard legacies, protect reputations, and keep those billion-dollar images spotless. But the quiet surrounding Albert Brooks didn't sound like business as usual. This wasn't lawyers spinning damage control or PR teams smoothing out headlines. This silence felt heavier, the kind that sits deep in your chest and doesn't let go. What makes it hit even harder is the history behind it. This wasn't some shallow Hollywood friendship built on premieres and photo ops. Albert Brooks and Rob Reiner go way back, over 6 decades of real connection. Long before the fame, the awards, or the spotlight, they were just two kids chasing laughs, cracking jokes, and dreaming about the big time, with no clue how complicated life would get later on. Rob once shared, "I met him when I was 14 years old, so I'm still in that not believing it stage. I know what happened, but I'm driving around and all of a sudden I actually 2 days ago, I called his number." Those words alone tell you how deep that bond ran. It wasn't Hollywood-made, it was real. So when Albert finally spoke up about what really went down inside that Brentwood home, the world listened. And what came out wasn't cleaned up or PR approved. It was raw, real emotion. Frustration, regret, and heartbreak all mixed together, spilling out in a way that completely flipped how people saw the story. Most folks just skim headlines and move on. They see phrases like incident or family struggle and keep scrolling.
Here for the longest time, I don't get to see enough, but it's always a pleasure when you're here. Thank you for bringing him, for doing this.
What am I, a dog?
He's my service animal.
Okay.
Fun to look out the window.
And I always knew you guys were friends until I saw this documentary. I know you went back. I didn't know what you go way, way back.
Yes.
Like
The high school, yes.
high school, is that
We
how
met
you-
in high school, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and we became instant friends. We met, it was a class. I think we were like 16, 17 at the time. 16.
It remains one of the most embarrassing moments of
But this situation, it demanded attention. Albert wasn't just processing loss, he was mourning someone who'd been part of his entire life. Albert's finally pulling the curtain back on a situation that's been swept under the rug for years. He's saying out loud what most people in power only whisper behind closed doors. For too long, the public story has focused completely on Nick, painting everything through a lens of endless love and understanding. Article after article made Rob and Michelle look like picture-perfect parents who gave it all to help their son through tough times. And to be clear, Albert never denies that love was there. But his take, it's heavier, more honest, and way less comfortable. He's not here to sweeten the truth or dress it up for sympathy. Albert speaks as someone who actually saw what was happening, someone who sat in that same living room years ago, watching things slowly fall apart while everyone else stayed quiet out of respect or fear of crossing a line. He described it like watching a slow-motion train wreck that nobody wanted to acknowledge. People could see the signs, but no one wanted to say, "This isn't okay." He's not criticizing Rob for caring deeply about his son. That's not what this is about. What Albert keeps pointing out is how love, when it refuses to face the truth, can become harmful instead of helpful. When love turns a blind eye to real warning signs, it stops protecting. It starts enabling. And that word, enabling, is exactly what Albert can't let go. Instead of rushing to spill everything on a talk show or sitting down for some glossy celebrity interview, Albert chose a quieter, more personal route. He opened up in a private conversation with a small group of Hollywood veterans, people who knew Rob long before fame, fortune, and expectations started to blur what was real. These were people who truly knew the whole story.
When I was 14 years old. So I'm still in that not believing it stage. I know it happened, but you know, I'm driving around and all of a sudden I actually 2 days ago I called it.
And now, pieces of those private talks are starting to spread, and what they reveal feels almost too real to handle. Albert didn't hide behind vague language or polite phrasing. He spoke straight. He gave specifics. One story stood out. A night about 8 months before everything finally fell apart. It was supposed to be a chill dinner. Just Rob, Michelle, Albert, and a few old friends. No tension planned, no drama expected. But then Nick walked in, and everything changed in a heartbeat. Anyone who's ever been around long-running family tension knows that shift. The air gets thick. Conversations stop halfway, and people start trading glances instead of words. But what caught Albert's attention wasn't fear or frustration. It was hope. Pure, aching hope. Rob looked at his son like maybe, just maybe, this time things would finally turn around. Like the years of struggle could somehow fade in that one night. Albert paused when retelling that moment, and everyone in the room felt it, because hope can be powerful. It can lift you up, but when it keeps colliding with disappointment, it can quietly become dangerous too. Albert and Rob weren't just industry friends. They met back in high school, shared decades of history, and stuck together through everything. Albert never said Nick was beyond help. He never blamed Rob for being a bad father. What he did say hit deep. Pretending the storm isn't there doesn't make it stop. Hollywood runs on a system that praises silence and quietly pushes back against honesty. Albert didn't sound angry when he opened up. He sounded exhausted, like someone who wished he'd spoken sooner before everything spiraled. And once you hear his side of the story, you can't forget it. It sticks with you. During one conversation, Rob warmly said,
"Dead from the neck up, meat head." What did you call me?
I could win the Nobel Prize and would say, Meathead wins Nobel. We went to a royal premiere of When Harry Met Sally in London, and we were walking up this red carpet to meet Princess Diana, and I got meatheaded a couple of times.
"Wanted you here for the longest time. I don't get to see you enough, but it's always a pleasure when you're here. Thank you for bringing him, for doing this." Then came some light talk about his dog. "He's my service animal." There was laughter, smiles, and the kind of easy energy that only happens between old friends. Someone mentioned the documentary, surprised at how far back Rob and Albert really went. Rob laughed, saying, "We met in high school." "Yes, oh my God, yeah." And we became instant friends. We met, it was a class. I think we were like 16, 17 at the time. It remains one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. It was all nostalgic and warm until that one moment. Albert described how the night shifted completely when Nick walked in. Rob stood up right away, arms opened wide, ready to hug his son and act like everything was normal. But this wasn't a family dinner meant for catching up or sharing stories. Nick hadn't come to talk, he came with a demand. And it wasn't something small. Albert said it was about serious money, the kind that people sometimes use to patch up problems that really need to be faced, not paid off. The second Nick spoke, the whole room froze. The laughter disappeared. Plates sat untouched. The tension was so thick you could feel it in the air. And then there was Michelle. When Albert looked at her, he didn't see annoyance or frustration. He saw fear. Real, quiet fear. And that tiny detail spoke volumes, because that fear didn't just appear that night, It had been living in that house for years, hiding in plain sight while everyone else pretended not to notice. After seeing that look, Albert said something in him just snapped. He couldn't stay silent anymore. He took Rob aside, away from the table, out to the patio where no one else could hear them. This wasn't a soft conversation or a gentle suggestion. Albert asked his oldest friend straight up, "How long are you going to let him hold you hostage?"
That question still haunts Albert, not because of what he said, but because of how Rob responded.
Gave me a leg up when I started making movies, connected me to Jerry O'Connell and Kevin Pollak. And to speak to these two people, Jerry O'Connell, who was maybe 11 years old when he met Rob Reiner for the first time, talks of a warm, kind person without whom he probably couldn't have finished that movie. And Kevin Pollak, a comedy and of course movie legend, talks about nothing but greatness when he worked with him on the set of A Few Good Men. Rob Reiner was a step-up guy for the industry. His dad was a legend, Carl Reiner.
Rob didn't get defensive, he didn't raise his voice, and he didn't lash out. He just looked completely drained, like someone who'd been carrying too much for far too long. And then he said something Albert says he'll never forget: "If I stop, I lose him." In Rob's mind, stepping back meant losing his son forever. He truly believed that his money, attention, and constant support were the only things holding the family together. But what he didn't realize was that by protecting Nick from every consequence, he was slowly bringing the chaos closer to home, inch by inch. That's exactly where Albert's story makes people uneasy, because he doesn't let mental health struggles become the only explanation. He's not dismissing it or ignoring it, but he refuses to treat it like a free pass for harmful behavior. We live in a time where every issue gets wrapped in explanations: pressure, trauma, addiction, upbringing. And sure, Nick had real struggles. The substance struggles weren't exactly a secret, but Albert doesn't sugarcoat a thing. He gets brutally honest about it. He says he grew up around addiction. He saw plenty of people lose their way, plenty of friends fall on hard times, but even then, they didn't cross that line. Albert pushes back on the idea that Nick was just a victim of his own thoughts. He insists there was something deeper, something personal simmering underneath it all. According to Albert, what drove things wasn't just frustration, it was resentment. Not just hurt, but anger that pointed straight toward the people who loved and raised him. And here's the part the mainstream coverage keeps skipping: jealousy. Imagine living under the massive shadow of Rob Reiner, a man whose name is tied to classics like The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and Stand By Me. Every step you take, every project you try, gets compared to those legendary titles. There's barely any room left to just be yourself. Albert remembers a moment from years back on a set when someone casually brought up Rob's name. Nick's reaction was instant, not playful, not mild, just pure anger. Albert said that wasn't rebellion, that was deep frustration. The kind that grows when someone feels completely unseen next to greatness. From Albert's point of view, Nick didn't only want financial help, he wanted to take down the image, the legend, the spotlight that had overshadowed him his whole life. This situation didn't just happen by chance. Albert believes it was deliberate, a desperate attempt to break free from the legacy that haunted him from the start. The defense attorney, Alan Jackson, isn't new to this. He's sharp, strategic, and knows exactly how to shape a narrative. Albert can already see the angle forming from a mile away. Paint Nick as a troubled man overwhelmed by pressure and crushed by expectations, a victim of a system that didn't catch him in time. And Albert's worried because that defense might actually convince people. He's been warning anyone who will listen not to let the story get flipped upside down, because the next move, it's predictable. Shift the blame. Make Rob look like the cause. Say he was too strict or maybe not enough strict. Claim that carrying the Reiner name was a weight too heavy to bear. Twist it until it sounds like the parents somehow caused their own heartbreak. Albert says that's the part that cuts the deepest. The ones who are gone can't speak for themselves. They can't explain their choices, their fears, or what they endured behind closed doors. They can't correct the story once it's changed. That's why Albert's speaking now. Not for fame, not for attention, but to make sure Rob's voice doesn't disappear from the narrative completely. He's stepping in as the voice Rob no longer has, because silence would mean letting people who weren't even there reshape what really happened, and Albert refuses to let that stand. He's not just a witness to the love that filled that house, he's also a witness to the emotional toll Rob carried for years without showing it. And that's what's making everyone uneasy now. Because according to Albert, this wasn't just confusion or stress. There were moments that crossed into something far more painful, and Rob, instead of fighting back, simply absorbed it all. Albert could barely say Michelle's name when he opened up about this moment. It clearly still weighs heavy on him. He revealed that just weeks before everything fell apart, Michelle called him out of the blue. There was no small talk, no long explanation, and she never mentioned Nick directly, but her questions said everything. She asked about home security systems, about safe rooms. Think about that for a second. This wasn't someone living in a risky neighborhood. This was Brentwood, gated, guarded, secure. Michelle wasn't worried about strangers breaking in. She was afraid of someone who already had access, someone who knew every corner of that home, someone who could walk right in without even knocking. Albert said he immediately told her to make changes, reset the codes, upgrade the security, bring in real protection, do whatever it took to feel safe again. He urged her to put distance between her fear and the reality of it all. But what eats at him now is not knowing whether she ever followed through. That thought hasn't left him for a second. He replays that phone call in his head again and again, wondering if he should have done more, if maybe he should have gone straight to the house himself. That kind of guilt doesn't fade. It lingers, and you can hear it in his voice every time he talks about her. You've got to understand just how deep their bond went. Albert Brooks and Rob Reiner weren't just friends. They were like two halves of the same person, same instincts, same humor, same timing. They built their lives and careers side by side, from kids with dreams to Hollywood icons. Losing Rob didn't just mean losing a friend, it meant losing a part of himself, a part of his history that can never be replaced. When others talk about Rob Reiner, you can instantly feel the respect. Jerry O'Connell, who was just about 11 when he first met Rob, remembers him as a warm, patient mentor, someone who made him feel safe and confident on set. He even said he might not have finished that movie without Rob's guidance. And Kevin Pollak, a comedy legend in his own right, only had praise too, calling Rob nothing short of incredible when they worked together on A Few Good Men. Rob Reiner was a step-up kind of guy, always helping, always guiding, the kind of presence Hollywood doesn't see often anymore. And of course, the legacy didn't start with him. His father, Carl Reiner, was a legend long before Albert. Albert said he had the honor of meeting Carl, and you could tell that same spark ran through both generations. But that admiration, mixed with grief, has now hardened into something else for Albert, a sense of purpose, even a controlled anger. He's done staying quiet. He's pulling down the glossy Hollywood shield that usually keeps powerful families protected from real accountability. Normally, when a celebrity's child starts struggling, the Hollywood machine kicks into gear. Crafted statements, privacy requests, and quiet fixes behind the scenes. But Albert says that silence is exactly what allowed things to spiral the way they did. He believes if someone had stepped in early, really stepped in, it could have changed everything. Albert even described a serious incident where Nick reportedly threw a chair through a window, a moment that clearly showed how far things had gone. That should have been the point when real help was brought in, but it wasn't. No official report, no formal intervention, just more behind-the-scenes cleanup.
Why? Because in that world, you don't call outsiders for help. You call private doctors, handlers, people who make problems disappear quietly. And that's Albert's biggest accusation, loud and clear. He says privilege didn't save this family. It trapped them. By avoiding accountability, there was never a real breaking point. Albert says the system completely failed because it kept bending instead of standing firm, and the cost of that flexibility was heartbreaking. It's a harsh truth, and he refuses to water it down. People who've seen the few clips of Albert talking about it say he looks different now, older, heavier, and weighed down by something much deeper than age. That sharp humor that used to define him, it's buried under layers of shock and sadness. He shared how he first found out about what happened, and it wasn't from the family. It came through a call from a mutual business contact who had picked it up on emergency radio chatter. Just imagine that, learning that your closest friend's life had ended from background radio noise instead of a direct call. The disbelief alone must have felt unreal. Albert said he didn't even think, he just drove straight to Brentwood. When he arrived, the scene was already locked down. Flashing lights, barriers, organized chaos. He tried to get through, telling everyone on duty that he was family, but none of it mattered. The officers didn't recognize him, or maybe they just couldn't make exceptions. To them, he was just another desperate man yelling from behind a secured line. That moment is burned into Albert's memory forever. Him standing behind the yellow tape, watching as the people he loved were reduced to files, photos, and official forms. No shared memories, no laughter, no history, just cold paperwork. Now, with the trial set for January, Albert's made his stance crystal clear. He's going to be there, front row, right behind the prosecution. He wants Nick to see him, to look him straight in the eyes and remember every moment, every warning, every promise that was made but never kept. Albert's not just another voice in the courtroom. He's living proof of everything that went wrong. Every check written to smooth things over, every excuse used to avoid the truth, he remembers it all. And that's exactly why he's such a threat to the defense. Albert isn't relying on rumors, he's relying on memory. He's done keeping quiet. Meanwhile, Rob and Michelle's sons, Jake and Roy, have asked for peace. They've asked for privacy, and Albert respects that. But in his heart, he believes silence has already cost too much. He refuses to let it win again. The brothers have asked for forgiveness, and that's their right. They're grieving in the only way children can when they lose parents and a sibling at the same time. They're trying to hold on to Rob and Michelle's memory without completely cutting Nick out of their story, and that's an almost impossible line to walk. Still, they're doing it with grace, keeping their pain private while the world keeps talking. But Albert isn't walking that same path, and he's made it clear why. He's not family by blood, so he doesn't carry that same duty to forgive at all costs. He was Rob's closest friend, his sounding board, his constant ally, and he's not searching for comfort. He's searching for accountability. Albert says grief doesn't have to mean silence, and forgiveness doesn't have to mean pretending nothing happened. While the siblings are choosing peace, Albert is choosing truth. And that decision has put him directly at odds with some very powerful people. He's been vocal about how disappointed he is in the industry's reaction. The wave of posts, the long captions, the perfectly phrased condolences, it all felt hollow to him. He's seen the pattern before. The same people who post emotional tributes online often hadn't spoken to Rob in years. Some stopped answering calls. Others slowly drifted away when things got complicated or uncomfortable. Then there were the people who knew something was wrong with Nick, but still looked the other way. They whispered about it behind closed doors, warned a few friends in private, but when it came time for social events, they still invited him, still kept him close, all because of that famous last name. Albert doesn't call anyone out publicly, but everyone in those Hollywood circles knows exactly who he's referring to. He calls it performative grief, public emotion without private accountability. It's the kind of show people put on after the damage is done. Albert's not interested in sympathy posts or carefully crafted tributes. He wants answers, real ones. He wants to know who was around Nick that night, who gave him what he shouldn't have had access to, who drove him to the house, and who kept enabling the behavior long after it should have been stopped. That's why this story hits so hard. It's not gossip. It's a harsh look at what happens when money, fame, fear, and unchecked behavior mix together in one toxic circle. It forces people to ask questions they'd rather avoid, like where does love end and where does responsibility begin? Rob Reiner spent his entire career telling stories where love wins in the end. His films taught generations to believe that love conquers everything, that if you just hold on, love will heal what's broken. But Albert, standing in the aftermath, is saying something no one wants to admit. This time, love didn't save the day. Love made it possible. Love opened the door. Love kept looking away. Love gave second, third, and fourth chances when the truth needed to be faced. And that's what makes this story so painful. It flips everything those beautiful movies stood for. For once, love didn't protect, it blinded. Albert shared one memory from the memorial planning that completely broke the room. He was sitting with Jake and Roy going through boxes of old photos, Rob on set, Michelle smiling, moments that felt frozen in time. Then they came across one picture from about 15 years ago, the whole family together. Nick was there too, smiling, calm, looking just like any other son in a happy photo. Albert says his first reaction was pure frustration. He wanted that picture gone. To him, it felt like a lie printed on glossy paper, a snapshot that erased everything that came after. But Jake and Roy stopped him. To them, that photo wasn't a symbol of harm. It was still their brother, a version of him that existed before everything fell apart. That difference in how they saw it said everything. That's where the real emotional divide lives. The family trying to hold on to the good, and the friend who can't separate it from the pain that followed. Neither side is wrong. They're just carrying two very different kinds of grief. Albert even tried to lighten the moment by recalling one of Rob's old jokes. He laughed softly, remembering Rob teasing him with that classic line, "Meathead, what did you call me?" And then following it up with, "I could win the Nobel Prize and they'd still say, 'Meathead wins Nobel.'" He smiled as he told that story, about how they once attended the royal premiere of When Harry Met Sally in London. They were walking the red carpet to meet Princess Diana, and Rob couldn't stop laughing because fans kept shouting, "Meathead," even there. Moments like that showed the kind of friendship they had. Decades of laughter, chaos, and shared memories that now cut twice as deep. Because for Albert, those moments aren't just memories, they're reminders of everything he's lost. The toll on him is clear. He's in his late 70s now, and this kind of emotional weight doesn't just fade. The sleepless nights, the flashbacks, the anger that never really settles, it's all still there. Albert's hinted that time feels different now, not because he's afraid, but because grief changes everything. It reshapes the body, the mind, and the way you see the world. Rob wasn't just a friend. He was part of Albert's foundation, someone who stood beside him through every era of his life. Albert shared one more story from years ago on set. The noise, the laughter, the easy chaos that came with creating something great, and you can hear it in his voice. Rob was the only person who could make Albert laugh so hard he could barely breathe. That kind of laughter, the real tear-streaming kind, was rare. And now that it's gone, the silence feels heavier than ever. Albert says he's tried revisiting their old work, sitting down to re-watch the classics they created together, but he just can't do it. The moment the screen lights up, the joy turns into pain. Every smile, every punchline, every scene triggers something inside him that he can't switch off. He said the quiet that follows feels louder than anything he's ever heard in his life, and that's exactly why he keeps speaking out. Not for attention, not for revenge, but because silence already took too much from him once, and he refuses to let it take anything else. Albert believes something else was lost too. Something people aren't ready to admit. He says Nick didn't just take Rob away from the world, he took his legacy too. Think about it. How do you sit down and watch When Harry Met Sally now without that thought creeping in? The happiness is still there, but now it feels different. The laughter lands heavier. It carries a kind of sadness underneath it that was never there before. But the detail that really shook people wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about Nick himself. Albert says in the last few times he saw him, there was something deeply unsettling in his eyes. Not sadness, not rage, not even exhaustion, just emptiness. He described it like walking into an abandoned house. The lights still on, the structure still standing, but completely hollow inside. And what makes that memory even harder to sit with is that Albert swears Rob noticed it too. They were both looking at the same thing, but they saw it in totally different ways. Albert saw danger. He saw danger. He thought it was time to step back, to create some distance before things got worse. Albert says that moment where everything truly shifted was about how two people saw the same thing in completely different ways. To him, it was a moment to protect yourself, to pull back before things went too far. But Rob didn't see danger, he saw pain. Pain that needed comfort, pain that could be healed with love, patience, and presence, and that's exactly where everything started to break apart. One man ran toward the fire, holding hope like a bucket of water. The other was shouting from the sidelines, begging him to step back, but the man carrying hope ended up getting burned. Now, with the January trial drawing near, Albert's made one thing absolutely clear. He's done staying quiet. He's done being the funny guy, the one people expect to lighten the mood. He's finished fading into the background while others rewrite the truth. Whether people like it or not, Albert is stepping into a new role, one where he uses his voice, not his humor, to defend what really happened. He knows exactly how this system operates. He's seen how stories get reshaped in courtrooms, how juries can be swayed by emotional tales of childhood struggles and pressure under fame. He knows how easily expensive lawyers can blur the lines just enough to turn responsibility into confusion. And that's why Albert's speaking now, because he refuses to let the truth get softened into another Hollywood rewrite. His message is sharp and direct. Rob and Michelle were not villains. They weren't careless or cruel. They were parents who loved deeply, maybe too deeply. And in Albert's eyes, that love became their weakness. That's not easy for people to hear. It goes against the instinct to wrap grieving families in silence and sympathy. But Albert says silence already betrayed them once. He believes truth is the last real form of respect left. Not comforting statements, not polished PR lines, not pretending things were peaceful when they weren't. The truth might hurt, but it's the only thing that honors what really happened. Albert says Rob was afraid that night, and that's the detail he refuses to let anyone erase. He doesn't want the world believing Rob just slipped away quietly, without fear or struggle. He wants people to understand there was confusion, panic, and real terror in those final moments, because to Albert, that fear matters. It matters in court, it matters in the story, and it matters for accountability. He's not driven by revenge. This is grief turned into purpose, a mission to make sure pain isn't polished or rewritten into something easier for people to digest. Albert believes the truth should stay sharp,
even when it hurts, and consequences should reflect reality, not a softened version built for comfort or public sympathy. So as the Reiner case continues to fill headlines and timelines, Albert wants everyone watching to take a step back. Don't get lost in the courtroom jargon. Don't let the endless legal talk or procedural delays blur what's real. He wants people to picture something simple but powerful. Albert, sitting alone in his home, surrounded by 60 years of friendship, laughter, shared milestones, inside jokes that will never be told again, and the weight of silence that never seems to lift. That image, he says, explains everything about why he won't back down, why he won't stop speaking. Because for Albert, staying quiet now would mean letting history twist into fiction, and he's not letting that happen. Not after everything that's already been lost. So when the next update drops, when the next headline flashes across screens, Albert's not waiting for another delay or another legal excuse. He's waiting for one final call, the one that says accountability has finally arrived. And even when that final call comes, Albert knows it won't bring peace. It won't fill the empty rooms or silence the noise that still echoes in his head. This isn't some movie where everything wraps up nicely in the end. There's no twist, no sudden redemption, no music swelling to make the pain feel meaningful. Real life doesn't end with closure. It just fades, slowly, quietly, leaving people to live with what's left behind. Albert's still standing in that space, refusing to look away. He keeps saying the same thing over and over. The signs were there, the warnings were clear, but facing the truth was too uncomfortable, so everyone avoided it until it was too late. That's what eats at him. The idea that maybe this didn't have to happen. The real question isn't whether this story ends, because it will. The question is whether anyone actually learns from it, because the moment the cameras come back, the media will try to smooth it over. They'll show old clips, smiling photos, talk about healing and moving forward, while quietly burying the harder truth underneath polite words. But Albert won't let that happen. He's here to remind everyone that the wound is still open, still raw, still unresolved. The hardest truth he keeps circling back to is this: sometimes the people closest to us aren't the safest ones, and sometimes the only person who sees the danger coming is the friend standing just outside the frame, yelling into the noise, powerless to stop what's already in motion. So now the question is simple. What do you think? Should stories like this be told even when they're uncomfortable? If you believe that truth deserves to be heard, make sure to drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories Hollywood doesn't want to talk about. Your voice helps keep conversations like this alive.